Hey guys, I'm Krista, and this is my big sister Stacey.
And this is Sister Social Call. Hey, Sissy.
Hey sis, how's it going?
Good. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Yeah, we're Saturday evening here. This is a little out of our regular recording time, but here we are switching it up a little bit.
Yep. Last week, you made a pledge to really focus on how many times you said the word like.
Yes.
Would you like to know the results of how many times you said like in the last recording?
Yeah, I think we should tell everybody my results so I'm accountable to my recovery.
Well, you said like 17 times in filler words.
I don't even think that's too bad.
Nope, I don't think that's bad.
I was thinking 25, but that was erring on the side of not as many. I was just hopeful it was going to be 25, but probably more like 35.
Well, 17.
I'm impressed, but I had to really focus on that last week. I really had to think about what I was saying, so I didn't throw the word like out there a million times. I ended up having to put 450 in my jar.
What are you going to do with your like funds?
I think I'm going to add them to my solo trip funds. Yeah, I'm going to add that money to there. So I should just start firing off the word like a ton of times. Maybe I'll be going on a trip real soon.
That is our strategy.
Why don't you tell us what's on the show today, sis?
It's Slow Readers Book Club this week. We are discussing All Fours by Miranda July. And then we're going to talk about our next book club book. And then, as always, we're going to end our episode off with our peaks, pits, and plans. So, sis, why don't you summarize All Fours by Miranda July?
All right, you guys. We have a female main character that plans to take a road trip to New York. But 20 minutes into her drive, she gets off the freeway and she holes herself up in a motel for a few weeks. She ends up spending $20,000 on redecorating her motel room, and it becomes her sanctuary. On her way to the motel, she has a strange connection with a young man at a gas station. The young man, named Davy, works at the Hertz car rental store near the motel. They end up spending a lot of time together in her time at the motel, and she feels something. Connection with this character. They never have sex, but they're intimate with each other. She leaves the motel and goes back to her life. The main character and Davy's relationship comes to an end. At home, her marriage starts to fall. She ends up proposing an open marriage and engages in some relationships after that. Universal themes of isolation and connection are weaved throughout this book.
So, sis, what did you think of this book?
I think I liked it more than you. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It wasn't my favorite book that I've ever read, but there was enough going on in it that it kept me very engaged. I just needed to know what was going to happen next because it was kind of all over the map. I think I can relate a little bit to this character because I think she was going through her midlife awesome is what I like to call it, where you just kind of derail a little bit in life. But instead of looking at it in a negative way, I feel it's a time for self-discovery or whatever you want to call it. And I myself have been through that. To me, I didn't think she was totally out to lunch, the main character. She was out to lunch redecorating her motel room. I think that's pretty excessive. The idea behind what was going on, just that whole, she seemed a little lost. And then the first person that paid attention to her, she really clung to that. And then there was this connection between the two of them that really wasn't practical, but it still stimulated her in a way that she obviously wasn't being stimulated in her regular life. And then there was just so much going on, Evie and her decorating, and then going back home to her husband and her, I think she only had the one kid, right? Yeah. And then, the marriage falling apart, and then her getting in a same-sex relationship, and there was just a lot happening. So I really was engaged the whole time because I couldn't even possibly imagine what was coming around the corner next. I like all kinds of books. There was definitely some sexual scenes in there. I like smutty romance novels. I'm guilty of that. I'm not going to lie. So, the little bit of risque behavior in the book, I was just like, you go get him, girl. But she was emotionally having an affair on her husband, I would say. And I just didn't love that. And then Davy, the dude, he had a partner too, and I didn't love that. And anyways, but all around, it kept me reading it, which I think is good for a book. Like, there's been some books that I cannot get into. And then once I made it through halfway, I just needed to know how the book ended. So I kept on going, and I went through it real quick. So I think that's pretty much my take on the book. I definitely think it's worth reading. My neighbor's going to borrow it from me next. So why don't you tell us about your... I can't wait to hear this, because you had some grumblings throughout the whole time. So I want to hear your unsolicited remarks on the book.
Yeah. When I was thinking about this, I don't typically love fiction books anyways. I like to read books that are biographies or self-improvement books. So I am totally a self-help junkie. But when I do read fiction books, I do like to have the themes of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and politics weaved into the book. Now, when I say sex, I don't mean like gratuitous, smutty book sense. Like, I like a little love story, but I definitely do not need explicit descriptions of people having sex. That is just too much information for me. It makes me very cringy. And All Fours had intimacy and it had some sex in it, but the intimate scenes were explicit. So it just totally made me really uncomfortable when I was reading book.
Let me interject for 1 second. For people that like to read smutty romance novels and things like that, you will not find this gratuitous.
Oh,
you will not.
Me. Well, then you can tell where I fall on this scale. I want 1-2 love scene, not what I was reading. Okay, drugs. I feel like there was a little bit of drug use. She was taking Benadryl to sleep, but it wasn't a big theme throughout the book. Rock and roll. I like the sense of energy or lifestyle, or that's what I mean when I say rock and roll. I don't really necessarily mean music. In this case, she did dance with Davy, but it was more intimate and not raw energy rock and roll, a grittier kind of story. And politics, I know Chrissy and I in our first episodes that we would not talk about politics on this show, but in the books that I like to read, I like to have politics. Might have small p politics, considering that she had a same-sex relationship. Her child is transgender. The whole story did not fall around those two themes. It just was, those were characters and that was an interaction. It wasn't weaved throughout the entire story. So my scale, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and politics. I don't think it met my test of those 4 categories. And I really didn't enjoy this book from the moment the main character redecorated the motel room. It is not relatable. And so I was just turned off at that point.
I do have to say, though, that she's an artist. And I think if you are an artist, you could probably relate to that a little bit. Very eccentric, very over the top. Your mind is everything is creative to you. So it's not it's crazy that she spends $20,000, but the idea of somebody going in and redoing a room for 3 weeks, I don't think that's that crazy, especially an artist. I just think that's all par for the course. It's not super surprising to me that she does that, but the amount is a little too much. Yeah.
Anyways, there are themes of isolation, awkwardness, and connection. And although at times in our lives we all struggle with these, but to me, how it was presented in the book, it just didn't resonate with me. And I'm awkward AF. We can just look back at 2 episodes ago and you can gain how awkward I am. So in summary, thank you, Christine, for the recommendation, but I was happy to be done with the book.
Yeah, it was a good recommendation. I mean, honestly, I think it's important that we read all types of books. That they're interesting. So throughout our Slow Readers Book Club, we're gonna listen or we're gonna read lots of different ones. So don't be discouraged if you didn't like this one and you were reading along as well. We'll have a lot of really diverse diverse books in the Slow Reader Book Club. And don't forget, you guys, if you have any recommendations you think that we should read, please let us know. Comment, drop us a message somewhere. Yeah, we need recommendations for what to continue on reading. We've got a few lined up for the future, but we're going to need more.
Absolutely. Which leads us to our next book. And it's my pick, and I'm really excited. And Chrissy's going to pick the next one. But the book that I picked is New Menopause by Dr. Mary Claire Haver. And I'm stoked about this because I wish I had this book when I was going through perimenopause. But I know it will be helpful now. And Chrissy, why don't you share with the listeners what the New Menopause is all about?
The New Menopause, navigating your path through hormonal change with purpose, power, and facts, is a comprehensive guide by Dr. Mary Claire Haver, a board-certified OB/GYN and women's health advocate. Published in April 2024, the book offers science-backed information and practical advice for women experiencing menopause. Dr. Haver emphasizes self-advocacy and provides tools to help women manage symptoms and take charge of their health during this pivotal life stage. The book covers a wide range of topics, including changes in appearance and sleep patterns, neurological,
musculoskeletal,
psychological, and sexual issues. A comprehensive A to Z toolkit of science-backed options for coping with symptoms. Additionally, Dr. Haver addresses the risks associated with the body's natural decline in estrogen production, such as diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, and weight gain. She also discusses how to advocate for oneself during medical visits and the latest research on hormone replacement therapy.
That's from the Penguin Random House website to describe that book.
All right, so that is going to be an interesting book to read. I'm excited to read it because I am in perimenopause, just starting it. But maybe this is ignorant of me, but like I said to my sister, I'm interested in reading these things, but I also don't want to cause myself to have symptoms that I don't have. You know how that can be, where you can read something and all of a sudden the next thing you know, you have that symptom or that side effect or whatever. I just want to just deal with what comes my way. But also, ignorance isn't always bliss. And I think it's important to, the information's out there for us. So why not take it in? And it's not just even for myself, but in the industry that I work in, as you all know, that I am a hairstylist. But I have a lot of clients that are my age and that sit in my chair and we have these discussions with each other. So I think this will be a really good tool for me, just even in the role that I have as a hairstylist. It'll be really interesting, and I'm excited to share what I read and I learn about the book or with the book in my day-to-day life with people that are also going through similar things that myself and my sister are going through. So I think it'll be interesting. I mean, like I said, I'm up to read almost anything, and especially if I can learn a little something from it. But I worry about that. Just like, they'll be talking about something, and then the next thing I'll wake up in the morning with whatever Stacey had. What was it called? What shoulder did you have? The
frozen shoulder.
The frozen shoulder. Well, she didn't know what it was, and then she listened to the podcast with Mel Robbins and Mary Claire Haver, and it was just, holy, she had the frozen shoulder. She didn't even know. She didn't even know she had that, but this was years ago, and now there's a name for it. Now I'm thinking, oh great, I'll read the book and wake up one day with the frozen shoulder.
Oh, yeah, and it was years that I had it.
Yeah, exactly. That was so crazy. And we kind of always just thought that it was stress related. That was just kind of how we thought about it. It's going to be interesting nonetheless. So it'll be cool to read the book and all that good stuff. It's very, I'm not going to say trendy, but maybe it is trendy. People are talking about menopause a lot more in this day and age, and it's a conversation, honestly, in my chair since we started this podcast, because menopause was on like our introductory episode. And so my clients and stuff are listening to the podcast, and that the conversation of menopause and all that comes with it has literally come up so much more in my chair, because I just, with the podcast, we've created this open dialogue.
Would have your clients talked about it to anybody before? Like, I know you said they kind of did a little bit with you, but do you, like, it's sounding like that the community is really, this topic's resonating with them. Like, who do they talk to before about it?
I think they're groups of girlfriends or whatever else. But of course, in the hair chair, nothing's off limits. It's like Las Vegas. What happens there stays there. I'm sure, as you guys can already tell, I just welcome any conversation. Like, I love to just talk about anything. I have a very welcoming atmosphere, so we just talk about a lot of different things. But I would say we get talking about the podcast, and the next thing you know, we're talking about, well, dry vaginas. Like, seriously, it's totally hilarious. It's so funny. I think to myself, wow, this is not what I really expected, but it is the reality. And how cool is it that, I've created a space that women can come in there and we can have this conversation about it, and everybody feels really good about it. And then they feel supported and they feel like they have somewhere they can go and have a conversation where no one's going to judge them. Yeah, I think that's pretty amazing. I think it's a pretty powerful thing that I do, but it's definitely come up in conversation a whole lot more in the last 2 months. I will say that. Okay, well, I think that takes us to a little shout out for a non-sponsor sponsor, sis. Today, and it's going to be in my Peaks, Pits, and Plats, but I was at my friend Jolene's place today, and we did a little meal prep class, and she is a Juice Plus partner. And she has been doing that business. She's been involved in that business for the last 9 years. She's extremely passionate about it. She's extremely passionate about healthy living, healthy lifestyle, fitness, all that good stuff. She also does the hydroponic indoor gardens. That's part of her business as well. And so this has afforded her the ability to stay home, raise her children, and to have a life that works with what they have going on as her husband works shift work. But I just want to give her a little shout out because she does all these different meal prep things, which I'll talk more about in my Peak, Pits, and Plats. But so she does this as well as like a little kind of side hustle. She's, a small business owner, I would say, and she's doing a great job at it. So I'll pump her up. So cheers to you, Jolene, and thank you for having us over for meal prep today.
Very cool. I can't wait to hear about what you made.
I just ate the salad. It was to die for.
Do you get the recipes? Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I guess this takes us to our Peaks, Pits, and Plans. And on our little show notes, it says I'm going to go first. I guess I'll just do that. I'm on a roll right now. Okay, so my pit this week, I don't really have any pits aside from the fact that I'm feeling extremely spread thin. And it's rare that this happens, but it's happened to me this week and I'm feeling it. What I mean by feeling spread thin is that I love to be by myself. I am a loner, and I'm an introvert, but an extrovert at the same time. And so in my job, as I've said before, I give a lot of myself and I really pick up on people's energy when they're in the salon. And so it is imperative that I have time to myself in the evenings and on the weekends to recharge my batteries. And it becomes more and more evident how this is an absolute must in my life. And so this week, it's just been a very busy week. I worked late every single night this week, started the week with horseback riding lessons. And then Friday night, I went out with my workout girls. We went to Activate. I made a little post on our Instagram about that as part of Fitness Week. Went out last night and did that. Then today I had this meal prep and I have just had something on the go and have hardly had any time to do anything for myself this week. Well, I mean, I've worked out and stuff, but anyways, I feel spread thin and I don't love that because I know better than to get myself there because I can't, I start to feel anxious about when am I going to recharge? Like when am I going to find the time to do that? And so I don't love that happened to me this week. I'm very, very good at not letting that happen. So I learned a little lesson and yeah, so anyways, but it's all good because my week was full of great stuff. So that's the problem. It's just all good stuff. So I can't even complain too much, but I think too that I maybe wasn't feeling super great this week actually, because I every day felt really, really exhausted when I woke up and I just didn't really feel 100%. But So maybe that's why also, but doesn't matter. I'm over it. I'm taking the time tonight I did go to the farm because I just knew I needed tonight to myself, do the podcast. I've already had a nice bath and I'll feel real good tomorrow. So anyways, that takes me to my peaks. And so, it started off last weekend. I was out at the farm. Then Mark and I went to a senior hockey game, which we hardly ever go to them, but they're always fun to watch. Our friends' sons play on the senior hockey team in Full Lake, and we both love watching hockey. So it was cool to get out and do that. I had a great phone chat with my friend Megan in Taiwan. We were on the phone for like 3.5, 4 hours and just babbling away. Just so good for the soul. So I really, really, truly loved that. And then another peak was going to activate. So this is interactive gaming. And there's all these rooms. I'm going to say there's like 10, 12 rooms or something. There's lots of them. And you go in them and you play these interactive games. It's a hardcore workout. My Apple Watch died, but some of the girls, I think their watch said they burnt like 500 calories in an hour and 15 minutes. And so you're in these virtual or these rooms playing the game. And then there's people that are outside. They can click on and sign themselves in. So sometimes you can play a few rounds. But if there's somebody waiting outside, they boot you out. But you have these little wristbands that keep track of your score, your points, everything. And they keep it. So every time you go back to activate, you keep adding to your points and then you can win prizes and things like this. So it is cool. Let me tell you, it was probably the hottest place in Regina, Saskatchewan on a Friday night. It was packed in there.
Yeah.
It was so cool. Oh, it was awesome. Totally
Is it
loved
expensive?
It was $30
For how many hours?
an hour and 15 minutes.
That is a great hour and 15 of entertainment.
Yeah, and it's a workout. You definitely get a workout and sober. No, nothing. No booze, nothing like that. I think it's awesome. And there was all ages, stages of life in there. Young kids, people our age, people older. So that was pretty freaking cool. I highly recommend that. And I think it's a franchise. I think there's others in Canada though. And then we went to this Liberty Kitchen, I think is what it's called. Liberty, we just called it. But anyways, we went there after. And anyhow, this is with my workout girls. We've been working out together. Brie and I started this workout group together 5 years ago. And we always say we should get together. This is the very first time in 5 years we've all gotten together and done something. We see each other outside of our group and this and that. Like Brie and Taylor and I golf in the summertime together and yada yada. But to get us all together is the first time. We're missing one. Our friend Lacey, she lives in the Yukon, so she didn't get to make her down for the night, but it was great. It was so awesome. And these babes are freaking fabulous. Like their crew that we were talking about, Menopause was coming up, and we talk about all that jazz and sex and all that great, all the women-y things. So we had a great time last night. And the food was good at Liberty as well. It's very similar to Brown's. We kind of think maybe it's affiliated with Brown's Social Hall. Maybe. And then I guess the other real high was my meal prep today at Jolene's place, who I pumped up a little bit. And we made kale Thai peanut salad, and then tofu noodle soup. You make them in jars. And so you put all the ingredients in them. And then all you have to do is add hot water when you want it. And it lasts for the week in the jar. And then the salad's just in a big bowl. Then you have the salad dressing on the side. So you don't mix it all up at once, because then you can just have it all week long as well. And, I'm not a big lettuce person, but I do like kale because I like the texture of it. And this salad was the flavor of it is party town. Party. I'll post the recipes online. My brother-in-law, Sean, Stacey's husband, he's got a peanut allergy, but you could replace it with almond butter or something, sis. It's so, so delicious. Yum. And easy, everything went through the food processor. Super easy. So great. That's my peaks. And so my plans for the week, I'm going to go to the farm tomorrow and spend the night with Mark and just hang. Hopefully we can do something cool. Maybe check cows, get ready for calving season. That's coming up. Just wait, you guys. In a month, I'm going to be talking baby cows and calves, and we are going to be posting all kinds of pictures of them. And it becomes ridiculous for me.
Yesterday I was driving down to Cranbrook and there are babies in the fields here. And I was like, what? It'll be soon. We'll be seeing Chrissy's babies.
Yeah, they're going to be coming soon. So I imagine there's a little bit of a few things around the ranch we got to start working on to get ready for that to happen. And then next Saturday, we're going to go for supper with a couple friends of ours, Jess and Trig. They're also ranchers. Jess is a vet at the Melville Vet Clinic. Trig, he runs the ranch. And so we're going to go out for supper with them in Yorkton, which will be really nice. We haven't seen them since, we went over to their house. They had a chef come in. I think that was in January, but we'll see them. And then I'll possibly get out for another ski. I'm trying to get a few more weekends in. So yeah, otherwise I work late every single night again this week, so she might be a repeat. I'm just going to try to take as best care of myself as I can and rest when I can. And just, this is the beginning of the crazy season for me. I can feel it already. So I got to figure out how I'm going to manage all the things, but it'll be good. I'm excited about this week. What about you, sis? Tell me about your goodness.
My peaks, pits, and plans. Okay, I'm going to start with my pits this week. And goodness, this one's going to be hard to talk about. But anyways, Christy and I were planning this episode, and our first plan was to talk about all fours. And then there's a lot of sex in this book, or to me, there was a lot. And we ended up thinking that this would lead into probably a sexy time conversation. And in my yoga class last week, I was working out, but then in the quiet moments, my head was very busy thinking about this. And I was so uncomfortable with the idea of talking about sexy time. And I'll be the first to tell you guys that I have always struggled with pretty low libido. And the reason why I was pretty upset on my yoga mat thinking about this, and I actually cried. And I've only cried twice on my mat in the many, many years that I've been doing yoga. Was the thought that I feel like I'm failing Sean in this department. He is such an amazing partner, and he even loves me unconditionally in the fact that I have a low libido. And anyways, but there is a peak to this, or like at least a good side, is I told Chrissy that this had happened, and I was really uncomfortable having a conversation about sexy time on our 9th episode. It's a little early.
It's too soon.
A little too soon. Yeah, even though we are having this conversation, but it's just in a different light. So I was like, this is a little too much, little too soon to be having this conversation. And then Chrissy provided me some silver lining and a lot of perspective. And so, sis, thank you. I know it's been a hard week for you of being so busy, but you took the time, and I appreciate that you provided me some much needed perspective. And so thank you.
My pleasure. I was thinking about that after just for a little bit, because what seems like such a big deal to you is such a common conversation in my everyday life. And it also is interesting to me when you were like, oh, I'm not sure about talking about that. I'm around so many people, and our conversations are so raw and so deep and so intense, which is my jam. That's that's what I live for. That to me, I'm like, oh, what's the big deal? But then we have just such different lives. I was like, oh, this is actually a big deal. Like, I could really appreciate, it's just not something it's just not something that it's just not a very common conversation for you. It's something that you're very open. You're just not very vulnerable about that part of your life, and you like to keep that part of your life private.
Absolutely. I really am. I don't even talk about sex with Kimmy, my bestie, or any of my besties for that matter. It's just a topic that we don't talk about.
I do think that leads us to why, though, that the sexy time in the book makes you uncomfortable. It's just that whole area is just kind of not, you read it and you're uncomfortable. It makes you uncomfortable. You don't love it, but you don't even like talking about yourself in that way, let alone reading about somebody else in that way.
I don't, but I also think I did talk about sex as a
true
profession for a number of years. So I could be a little bit burnt out and being like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm over it. I worked at Planned Parenthood for 6 years while I was in university, and it was all encompassing. It's interesting how the world comes full circle, though, because here I am talking about perimenopause, menopause, post-menopause in my current workplace, but I just don't love talking about like how I'm doing it, how often I'm doing it. So that concludes my pit. I appreciate that my sister gave me some perspective. My peaks. It actually started off with night skiing last weekend. I posted the picture and that was so fun. And it was spring skiing at nighttime. It was glorious. The snow was soft. Oh, it was so good. And there was actually some corduroy in some places still. So I felt it was great skiing. It was fun. And then we went for a hot spring, as we always do. Had yoga on Sunday morning, even though I like cried on my mat, my yoga instructor, and I had a nice chat afterwards, and just is, a great visit with her. We finished some home renovations, and we had a request to share some before and after photos of our little home renos. So we'll try and get some of those up this week, maybe. And another peak is just my husband, Sean. He did the home renovations. He was very, very understanding when I talked to him about crying on my yoga mat. And he's just a very great husband, a really amazing partner.
Best brother-in-law. I've said that already before, but he's the best brother-in-law ever.
What's your favorite thing about Sean to be your best brother-in-law? I know he's your only brother-in-law, but what's your favorite thing?
I don't know if I can describe it, but his energy. I think Sean and I have just always had this little bit of a connection. We just seem to enjoy each other. And there's the odd time that him and I hung out without you being around. And it's just like we get along like a brother and a sister. Well, last year when I came out to see you and you were, I don't even know where you were. You weren't even in town. And me and Sean playing Crokinole, drinking 0 alcohol drinks together. I've never felt uncomfortable. I don't know if it's just because he's been in my life for so long, just like Uncle Roger. He's just always felt like a part of my life. He just literally feels like my brother. I just feel that about him and I love him just like that. He's part of my life. And so last year when I came up and you weren't home, I was like, sweet, I actually get to just hang out with my brother-in-law for a little while, which is cool. I just love him so much. So I think that's it. It's just that we have this, we don't talk to each other a lot, but it's like when we hang out, it's just like, we just hang out, talk about regular life stuff, and we just pick up where we left off, and it's just great. I never feel awkward around him. Just like, yeah, I'm just hanging with Sean. Love him.
He is rock solid as a human being. Like, he's so stable, and he's just so understanding, and he's so even keeled. And sometimes I'm like, I make a joke that he has the emotional range of a snail because he just does not waver from even. And I just think for us who do have we are energy people, like up, down, we feel it. And it's not that Sean doesn't feel it. He just doesn't, he has so much more ability to manage his reaction than maybe we do. He just is so even. Anyhow, so yeah, he's just a great, great partner. And
he's great.
So my plans this week, it's actually a pretty quiet week for me. I will be doing some true peak adulting. I need to do my taxes. That is going to happen this week. And I do more scanning of my photos. I did a whole bunch today, and that felt really good to get through a whole bunch. And so, yeah, so it's a quiet week. We might try and go ski tomorrow if the snow holds up. It sounds like it's holding up today. So yeah, that's really about it.
Well, that sounds really good. I think that sounds pretty great. Okay, well, I think that's going to conclude our 9th episode. You guys are amazing. We've surpassed 400 downloads, so we're feeling pretty great about that. I think that's pretty awesome for just starting out and plugging along. So yeah, we want to say thank you to you all for listening and for commenting and for reaching out to us. We're still looking for book suggestions, so please fire them at us. We do plan to do, because the next one we're doing is the hair episode.
Yes, hair.
Anyway,
yeah.
So as you all know how to reach us by now, if you're listening or if you're new, you can find Sister Social Call on Instagram. You can find myself, Krista, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. I've got a couple of YouTube channels. You can find Stacey on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Yep.
As you know, we are now on Apple and Spotify. So if you guys wouldn't mind heading on over there and giving us a little follow and a review, hopefully 5 stars, please do that, because I think that's going to help our podcast reach more people. It gets distributed more. The more downloads we get, the more likes we get, the more reviews that are there. So please go give us a follow on whatever streaming platform you use. And if you don't mind, give us a quick little review. And yeah, I think that's going to really wrap it up for us.
I think so too, Sissy.
That was awesome.
As always, love you.
Love you too.